I'm James Wedmore, and with 17 years online, I've built my business to over $12 million in sales per year. And this is the first non-business business podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of spirituality, energy, and mindset to grow your business beyond your wildest dreams, all from the inside out. This is the Mind Your Business podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mind Your Business podcast with my favorite segment of the week, the Wednesday Weekly Win, where I get to interview a new digital CEO every week about the business that they have created. And today I am so excited to have Sarah Bell Reed on the podcast because Sarah has one of the coolest, most unique niches of any of the students in BBD, in my humble opinion. So Sarah, introduce yourself to our listeners, and why don't you share what you do and who you teach?
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you so much for that great welcome. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Sarah. I'm a professional musician and an educator and a creative coach for musicians. And what I specialize in is helping people learn synthesis, electronic music, sound design, and helping them put all of those new skills to use so that they can make more music that they love.
So for those of us who love music but are not musically inclined, can you break down like what is sound synthesis and sound design?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So music is already a niche, but this is definitely a micro niche within a niche. So understandable. Yeah. So the idea behind electronic synthesis is basically that you're creating your own sounds from scratch using electrical circuits or using, sometimes it's code if it's a digital instrument. But basically you're, instead of playing something like a piano or a violin, which is a pre-existing instrument, acoustic instrument, you're working with things like sine tones, oscillators, noise generators, basically like low-level electrical components. It's very nerdy. And combining those together to create sound. And what's really cool about it is you can create everything from classic kind of synth pop bass lines that you might associate with like, synth pop bands or something like that, all the way to sci-fi, retro futuristic sounds, video game sounds, all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool. So it's kind of, tell me if I'm getting this right, but it's kind of like when you watch Charlie Puth on Jimmy Fallon and he's tapping a coffee cup and he can make like a whole sound out of whatever sound effect, then that's like synth, creating synth sounds and music out of that.
Yeah, that's an element of sound design for sure. Like using exactly. Yeah. And then the synthesis side is more specifically doing that kind of sound creation using purely electronically generated sound.
Oh, cool. I mean, like what a neat, so I can't wait to break this down because, and you and I were talking offline before we hit record. Every year when we come around to this time of year when the doors to BBD are about to open for only 4 days, there's people in our ads that are writing things like you can only make money in digital business if you sell business. And James and I are always like, that's so not true. And then he was going toe to toe with this person who was, let's just say, a antagonistic viewer of a video who was very skeptical about the money to be made online. And he said, well, if people are making money in these micro niches, they would be shouting it from the rooftops online. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think people are just online saying, look at me, I've created this digital business for musicians, and this is how much money I make. Now, we're going to break that down in this episode, but let's start with explaining how you arrived at this niche and then what your offer is and how you crafted it.
Sure. So I've been a musician my whole life and actually started as an acoustic instrumentalist playing trumpet. I won't tell you my whole life story because that would take too long. But what I kind of associate with my personal like biggest breakthrough as a creative musician not so much a business owner yet at that point, was when I started to work with electronic instruments. For me, it was like a floodgate moment where I realized there was just so much I had to say and so many ways I could express myself that I wasn't tapping into yet with my prior musical training. And so it was such an impactful thing for me coming into that world of sound design and synthesis that when I was brainstorming topics for a course, and I don't know if this is of interest, but I did go through many ideas before I came on this one.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about all these different corners of like what I knew as a musician. I was like, well, I could
Mhm.
do this, or I could talk about this, or, and then finally, I kind of landed on the thing, funnily enough, that like mystified me the most, or the thing I struggled with the most, which was learning.
Oh, I just got chills when you said that. That's such a good piece of coaching for people who are thinking like, there's so many things that I love to do and could teach. So how do I settle on the one thing my first offer? Because which I know if anyone listening is like, I'm still trying to figure out my offer. One of the things James says is your niche doesn't define you, it's just defining the offer. So like, of course, Sarah, you could teach a trumpet course, or you could be out there, teaching whatever you want with music, but creating a specific niche down offer helps you or serves you in the marketplace. Okay, so continue. So you landed on the thing that mystified you the most, which was the synth sounds.
Yeah, and it was, it was because it was interesting because I simultaneously found it the most fun and compelling. And like I said, it gave me this big breakthrough moment for myself. But I
Mhm.
also really struggled to learn it and understand it. And I went through many years where I didn't feel smart enough. And I told
Mm.
myself all these stories like, I can't do this. This is for people with electrical engineering degrees and all of this. And so I kind of felt that having gone through that put me in a very good position to help other people, not just learn the nuts and bolts and the technical stuff, but who also might be feeling kind of like I'm not smart enough for this, or
Mhm.
I'm too old. I've missed my window. And that was really what got me excited about choosing that as a topic because it
Yeah, that's so cool. It's like the age-old maxim, send the elevator back down. It's like you almost want the when you're choosing your and was this your first digital offer? The
yeah,
Yeah, so when you're selecting the niche or the or refining the offer for what are you going to offer first, thinking through like what is something that I personally am mystified by and enchanted with that I authentically had to learn and walk through the steps, and where do I feel really confident that I could go backwards in my learning journey and take people on the same pathway that I took myself on in order to get where I am. And that's a really good way to identify what to teach. That I relate to that so much because that's what we did when I told James I wanted to teach something intuition related. That's what I did was I thought through like where were the points where I got really frustrated learning from these intuitive I was being taught by an intuitive psychic that was like had naturally literally seen dead people since she was 10. Like she told me this story that she used to play with a dog all the time, and her family waited till she was like old enough to tell her that it was like her grandmother's dead dog that had been, and she was like, "Oh, the collie dog that comes in and sleeps on my bed every night." And they were like, "Just don't tell her that it's a ghost." And it was so unrelatable to me at the time.
wow.
It was
Yeah.
like, how are you doing that? And she kind of couldn't explain it because it was natural. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
if I can learn how to do this, what's frustrating to me is people just saying, just open your third eye. And you're like, what the hell does that mean? What do you mean? And so I
Right.
created these like strategies and processes and procedures for myself, and I would experiment with it. And then once I learned how to formalize it and it worked, I would go, you know what? I could take Sarah on a little journey of like, here's where I started with how to wake up my clairvoyance. So I think that's a really brilliant way to do it. And I really like that you said that you picked something that you authentically were just really enchanted by, because you do want to look for that hedgehog concept of like, what am I really passionate about? What am I good at teaching? And what could I make money teaching others that people would actually pay to learn?
Right.
But if you pick something that you're just good at and people will pay you for, eventually you're going to hit a roadblock and be like, this isn't that interesting to me anymore.
Right. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize at the time, back 5 years ago when I started this, that you're going to be talking about that thing a whole lot.
Whole lot, a whole lot.
Coming up with a million new ways to talk about it every couple of weeks. Yeah, so that is a very good piece of advice to choose
Yeah.
something that genuinely kind of lights you up. And I remember hearing something that James said in some training somewhere, which is or maybe he just demonstrates it by going, now I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're probably thinking this, like as
Huh?
soon as the objection comes in. And when you're that close to the material, like you were just describing with your journey learning the intuitive
All
work
the
that you
woo-woo
do.
stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Sorry, I just don't know the right words to describe it.
I heard someone on a podcast call it the whoopee whoopee stuff, and I had never heard that before, but I was like, oh, okay, woo woo whoopee whoopee stuff.
I love it. The woo-woo stuff. I think it's great. When you struggle with it, you do genuinely know what they're thinking next. Because
Yes.
like 2 weeks, well, maybe not 2 weeks before, but a few months before, a few years before, you were exactly there having that
Yes.
same.
Yeah, it's so funny. He'll talk about the beginning of his digital career, and I remember him being so frustrated in 2008, 2009, because he would go to these conferences where at that time the it thing was creating apps, and he had an app for something, and he was always creating digital offers, creating apps, whatever. And he came back from this one conference and he was so bummed because he had seen someone that like over the course of 6 months they had created this app that just went viral, and now they're a millionaire. And he was like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to do this. I haven't hit on like this idea that's going to be like the viral idea. And I remember telling him that don't worry about that event, because you're not an overnight sensation, a one-hit wonder. You're going to be able to teach how to
Yeah.
do this to other people. And at the time, that wasn't really what he wanted. He wasn't interested in like, oh, I'll also figure out how to teach others. But that's what BBD has evolved into. And looking backwards, now James is able to identify that he's got so much more fulfillment teaching others that pathway to success than he did when he was just like, oh, I created something that sells a lot on its own and I can go surfing for the rest of the day. Now it's more like a vocation and a calling. So I think for those people who are out there like wondering what to teach, or if you're struggling in it, like that actually can become one of the most unique, best pieces of your offer, because then you can talk through that with your students and go, I remember when it was really hard to learn music production. And I know what you're thinking. I know where you're struggling. I was right where you are. And eventually you'll be where I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah.
what is your offer? Walk me through how you crafted your digital offer and then how you've grown it. And if you want to share where you're at. I was blown away by your metrics and what you've done with this in a short amount of time. So share with us a little bit of like what how you decided what you were going to sell and then how you scaled it.
Sure. I honestly used BBD kind of as a template. Like I didn't know anything. Well, actually, okay, sorry. I'm going to back up a little bit because that's not entirely true. I had taken some online courses. I had a little bit of insight into what they could be, but I was in BBD. I was like, you know what? I'm here. This course seems great. I'm just going to like model it after this. I'm just going to
Yeah.
see what I see. Obviously, there's no subject overlap, so I don't have to worry about, stealing anything. I'm just going to take the format and the structure. And so that's what I did. And my main program is called Learning Sound and Synthesis, which is very on the nose for what it is, what you do.
That's
Um,
Tracy's favorite way to title things. Always says, just name the thing what it is.
yeah,
Like he's got a free course right now that's called Your First Digital Product, because it teaches you how to release your first digital product. And I'm like, that's so simple, and yet people overthink the naming of things all the time. And it's just like, just name it whatever it does for people, name it that.
it's so funny. I didn't know that about the first digital product, but one of my most successful lead mag like free classes that I offer is called Your First Modular Synth Patch.
It's perfect.
And it
That's
teaches
what it
people how to
does.
make
Name
their
it what it
first
does.
modular synth patch. It's great.
No, but if
So
you did something
yeah,
like synth magic, then it's like, okay, what is it? But what does it do? And you just, your first modular synth package, name the
yeah,
thing what it
exactly.
is.
It is what it is. Sorry, what was I talking about? So that class, can you remind me your question?
Yes, yes. We're talking about the origin of your offer, like what you decided to offer first. You were saying you modeled it after Business by
I
Design.
modeled after BBD. I did the monetize before you make it as my first launch. Um, so I did a beta where I enrolled 30 people. That was my goal, and I hit it. I think I had 32 people in my first
That's
launch, which
incredible.
blew my mind. Blew
So,
my mind.
and when you did monetize before you make it, did you do the shot across the bow where you just go live on social and you're like, I'm going to teach this for the first time? Or how did you put that offer out there into the world?
Yes, I had a couple years prior, I had started to work on growing my Instagram audience,
Mhm.
mostly as a musician. Like I just wanted to grow my audience as a musician, to have somewhere to share my own work. And then I did the shot across the bow idea where I was like, hey, is anyone out here like curious about how I do the kind of music that I do? I think I'm gonna put together some teaching about it. Let me know if you want to be notified when that happens. And a bunch of people put up their hand, and that resulted in my first little like wait list for the class. And I don't remember how many people were on that list. Honestly, at that point, I think I was just thrilled that there was anybody, and I wasn't really tracking my metrics very carefully. I just was like, oh my God, there's people. Um, and then, yeah, so I had a couple pieces in place. I had a structure for the course. Um, I had a welcome video and a schedule for Zoom calls, and I launched it. It filled up. I think I was in shock for about 48 hours. And then I was like, okay, I got to get to work and make this course now. And it was great. I mean, it was so much fun because with 30 people, it was small enough still that I was really able to, meet them where they were at and work with them and get to know them. And a lot of the materials I made for that first beta are still in the course today because they just came together really well.
So what did you price the beta at?
$250.
Great. So it's an easy price point. And
Yep.
then what was the format of delivery for the beta? Did you do live calls?
It was a combination of video and live.
Okay, video and live. And then after the beta, how did you launch it? And what changed? What did you learn in the beta? What did you change after it?
So after the beta, I launched it again in December of that year. The first one was August.
Mhm.
Um, I fleshed out the video training portion a fair bit, based on some things that I knew were like sticking points, things I knew people were getting really tripped up on.
Yeah.
Um, It's a very technical topic that I'm teaching. So what I realized during the beta was that the really technical stuff was better in pre-recorded video, so people could go at their own speed. They could pause. They never had to worry about slowing down the class.
Mhm.
And then the live calls, people were wanting to talk more about um, the bigger picture of being a musician who works with electronic music. So they were asking me questions about creative mindset and how to get over the fear of putting yourself out there and like, just like all of these other aspects of being a musician. So it became this really nice balance where the technical nitty-gritty was in the videos and then the live calls were more about kind of growing as artists. And
That
I
is so
love that.
cool.
I love,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so then after the beta, did you change the price point?
I did. I raised it to $500, 497.
Okay, so you doubled it pretty much. I
Doubled it.
mean, but I love pointing this out because it's like and okay, so I spoiler alert, I know your numbers because we've already talked about it, but tell everyone else like what you did in that for
Sure.
like what the beta made, what you did in that first year, second year, and then where it's at now.
Sure, sure. Okay. So the beta was about $9,000, which was a really big deal for me because it was three times the investment to BBD.
Mhm.
And I remember making that initial investment into BBD, and it was very scary. And I was like, I just need to make this money back somehow. And so I joined BBD in June 2020, and then by August I was launching. So it was pretty quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I was determined to get this done. So then December, I launched again, and that was a I think about $33,000 launch, which was incredible for me. My day job that I'd had for a couple years prior, that was my yearly salary. So that to me made me realize like, okay,
Wow.
this is significant. This will probably change my life
That
because
is so cool. So
yeah,
you enroll in PBD and within 1 month you've tripled your investment. And then within 6 months you've replaced your salary.
yeah,
That is wild. Okay, so tell me
I
what happened
know.
then. Ready, you guys, your
Um,
jaws are going to be on the floor. This is like the results of this are incredible. Okay, so
The next
first.
year was 2021. That my big pie in the sky goal for that year was to hit $100,000, which seemed like completely impossible.
Mhm.
That was like a number I pulled. It was like the number you pick out of thin air and you're like, yeah, right, maybe one day. Um, but I launched in June and it was about a $71,000 launch and
Yes.
in
Oh,
June. And then my next one was a little lower. I don't exactly remember the numbers, but definitely hit the $100,000 year that
yeah.
year. Um, and it's just kind of, I just kept going with that, launching twice a year.
Uh-huh.
Last year, 2024, is that right? Yeah. Last year, we closed the year at around 600.
That is unbelievable, Sarah.
Yeah.
And I want everyone listening to hear that because you would like people get hung up on I think some people come into the digital business and they think if I have a home run offer, it'll make a 500,000 out of the gate. And what has to be established is this momentum of just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And you're such a great example of doing the process in BBD exactly how James has designed to do it, which is get the templates, get the program, copy exactly what I've done because it works. And you fill the beta. And then inside of the beta, when you were delivering that, were you surprised to learn that there was this whole other element to the students that's like, I'm not just teaching a technical skill. They genuinely want support around what it is to be in an artistic community and how to make a career out of being an artist.
Yeah, I was. And I was thrilled too, because that's honestly a part of my personality as a coach that I didn't really know was there yet. I thought
Mhm.
I was just like, I'm going to teach about oscillators and sine tones and, like all that stuff. And that's great. But yeah, there was this whole other dimension to it, which has really become a significant part of the offer now. And so
Yeah.
now when people take and work with me, it's because of the balance between creative mindset and all the tech talk. Like we're going to get into the nuts and bolts, we're going to get into all of the tech, but we're also going to talk about the philosophy of music and, try to figure out your unique voice and what you find most inspiring and, how you can grow your creativity at the same time as your technical skill.
See, I love that because I think when people are at the starting line, they overthink what they're going to offer because they feel like they have to pick
Yeah.
between two. It's like, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to niche down too specific, and then that's going to put me in a box, and I'm not going to be able to talk about the philosophy of being an artist and coach people around, but if you think about like the offer is selling what they want and then the delivery of that is giving them what they actually need and you can straddle both worlds, and so I love the way that you've designed it because um people over and I like how you executed it too. You just got in there and went, you know what, I'm gonna do the beta. And then you learned how to craft the offer and deliver it through the beta. Like
Yeah.
James always says, like, we can't talk about how you're gonna launch yet because you haven't done the beta yet. And we got to see what you like and how you deliver it. And you learned through the delivery more about what the live calls were gonna be, and then we're able to design it. So you took that offer that's about $500 for 497 to 600K, or did you create various split off offers off of that?
There are a couple of other offers that have come from that
Mhm.
um, as like next steps. So I don't market them publicly
Yeah.
necessarily, like they're not front of, if that makes sense, front facing.
Yeah.
One of them started as a bonus. Excuse me. One of them started as a bonus for the class that I gave for free, one cohort that I launched. And then it just ballooned into this like really cool class about finishing your music because I realized everyone was getting to the end of my class and they were like, wow, I know all the tech. I know how to make all these cool sounds, but now what do I do with them? How do I actually like put them into a composition and a piece of music and release it? Like, how do record labels work? All of that kind of stuff. So I ended up packaging that up as a kind of almost um, like sales page by design and business by
Yeah,
design.
like kind of like an upsell.
Yeah,
Like,
like it fits in really well.
yeah, it's like an additional support product. Mhm.
Exactly, exactly. And so that is there as well. And then because I was noticing that there was so much interest in the creative mindset and the that end of things, I also started a small group mentorship program
Mhm.
specifically for alumni who have
Cool.
gone through and the course and were really serious about wanting to work in an intimate environment for 4 months together and like really get deep into
I
their
love that.
project.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea. So what's the price point of that and how many people do you accept
The mentorship program is $6,000.
for 4 months?
And it, yeah, for 4 months. And
Cool.
it's usually it's usually about 5 to 10 people. I keep it really small.
Cool. Oh, that's so neat. And then do you repeat that cohort every 4 months or is it like 4 months and then you're done for the year?
1 to 2 times a year. I've kind of been feeling it out.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. Well, yeah, I hope people listening, because I mean, I talk to students all the time. I like one immediately comes to mind that'll be like, oh, I think I want to do a membership on the back end or maybe, but I'm not really sure. And I love that you've designed this of like, this is exactly how you want to work, who you want to work with. And there's no rules to this when it comes. James was just demonstrating how to do pricing. And he has these pricing theories where it's like, you're sometimes when you're looking at price brackets, if you will, like a price that's 50 to $100, that's all one buyer. So if you're going to price something at 67, you may as well price it at 97 because the same person who would buy at 67 would buy at 97. And then there's another tier of buyer that's like the same person who would pay 397 would also pay 497. So go ahead and price it at 497. And the pricing brackets that he does is like 50, basically $50, $100, $200, $500, $1,000. And then he said all bets are off past 3,000. It's like if you
Right.
get to 3,000, anything past that, price it whatever you want because now you're out of like the typical psychology of like what people will buy at. And
Sure.
I love that you've gone, you know what? Once or twice a year, I'm going to do a small core cohort of 5 people. The price point is $6,000 and it's 4 months.
Yeah.
And that's like, 60 grand for a little
Right.
over a quarter of the year. And that's unique to how you want to work and who you want to work with. And that's something that you've just specifically designed inside of your brand. So I hope people listening are going like, oh, that's really creative. You can add an
Yeah.
offer like that just based on what you think would be fun?
Yeah. And there's a couple of things I'll say about it that might be helpful for someone listening. I don't think you have to work your way up necessarily to a pricing, but I did for this.
Hmm.
The first thing that I realized was everyone was asking me for one-on-one
Hmm.
support. And so I was like, okay, I'll do one-on-one, but I knew I didn't want to just teach lessons. This was after I'd launched my class. I didn't want to just do one-off hour lessons. I wanted to do
Right.
like a package.
Yeah.
So I did that. Then that got really full, and I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. What if I put all my one-on-ones into a mentorship program for 4 months? And that's kind of where that idea started. And I think it originally was maybe $3,000, and then I kind of grew as I had more experience and more testimonials and more, client stories and confidence. I grew in that.
Yes. So when you originally ran, like, let's talk about the first time that you ran the cohort. Were you, I know that some people's hesitations of like moving from one-on-one to group is that they're not going to be able to personalize it enough. Like some people say to me all the time, like, I don't think I can do group because it's so specific and personalized, which may be true if you're doing something like, writing a nutrition plan for one person. But were you surprised at all at like, or did you have an experience going in of like, you know what, it's actually really beneficial for people to listen to, you all have similar things that you're learning and you think it's a really unique problem, but
Yeah.
actually everyone in this group is going to learn from this one-on-one interaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought a lot about it. I was nervous a little bit at first, because I did feel like, well, are they gonna feel like they are as supported? Are they gonna feel like they're getting the personalized attention they need?
Mhm.
But I basically just decided that it was going to be better because it was a group for those
Yeah.
reasons that you just said. You get to
Yes.
hear people ask questions that you didn't even realize you had yet. Like
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
If you go into it expecting a gold nugget from every conversation, you'll get one, but you kind of what I ended up doing was at the beginning of my class, I do this with everything I teach. I almost give an orientation for the students or a little bit of a training for how to get the most out of it.
Mhm.
And I talk about a lot of these things. So, I will talk to them about how to get the most out of a group experience and how to look for the gold nugget in every conversation, even if I'm not talking directly to them, how to basically listen as though it's their dedicated coaching call, you know?
Mhm.
And I give them all of these different ways of thinking. And what I've noticed is that it really sets them up for success. And so then they come into the group and they're doing all the things. They're listening as though every question was theirs. They're, giving each other feedback and not necessarily waiting for me to give feedback. It's just a really beautiful, supportive environment. But I think kind of first of all, like making the decision, like this will work and here's
Yes.
why, getting very specific about it, and then communicating that to them and sort of setting that expectation for them.
Yes, I love
As
that.
well.
And I like that you said, I just decided this is going to be better
Yeah,
because I think that's really important. You're wearing two hats in digital business. You're the teacher and the artist. You're also the marketer. And when you go to market your offer, if you haven't decided for yourself, this is the best thing for you as my student, they're gonna sniff it out in the marketing. It's like people are just natural truth detectors. And I think that for some people, they have uh, a lack of faith in their offer that they're still going, I know it would be better to work with me one-on-one. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing that anymore. You can do the group program and that's the best I can do. And if you approach it like that, you're going to get people DMing you and emailing you and saying, no, Sarah, please take me on one-on-one. But if you're like, listen, this is the best, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a one-on-one coaching environment going, dang, I wish I would have recorded that because that piece of coaching
exactly.
that I just gave Sarah was perfect for Mary, you know?
Exactly.
And so you end up curating these groups where you can do group coaching because they'll benefit from one another. And as a student in group coaching, there's so many times when I've been listening to someone else and gone, huh, I didn't think I had that question, but that
Exactly.
totally applies to me. Yeah.
And so much of being a musician and an artist and a human in general is about, learning to listen to other people and like communicating with other people. And so if I'm offering something like creative mentorship, I really believe that it has to be in a group because it's about that exchange, right?
Mhm.
It's about becoming comfortable enough to advocate for yourself and share your ideas in a room full of people, like that's such a
And now you're selling it. You're selling it to me because
I
you're
know, and I'm
what
in.
you're doing. I just want to point out what you're doing so well is that you're addressing a natural objection that arises, which is the desire to have a one-on-one coach. I think truly comes from a pure place of humans just wanting to make sure that they get the breakthrough they paid for. That's
Yeah,
all it is they really want to make sure. I'm investing my time, money, and energy into this. Please make sure I don't get in my own way and that I can do this. But if you're the way that you're talking about it is like there's ways that you can get on your own way that you didn't even think about, which are going to be addressed in this group program. You have to learn how to speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself, be present, listen to a group,
Yeah.
be in the company of other artists. And then they're hearing like, oh, you know what? This is better than one-on-one. I want all of those side benefits that I wouldn't get in a one-on-one environment. And that's really key to, how you market it. Honestly, it's a really good way to market, to speak about it authentically like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think has changed for you in the last couple of years now running a multi six-figure business versus when you just started? How have you evolved as an entrepreneur?
So many ways. I think some of the biggest things when I was just getting started, everything was new, understandably. And so everything felt challenging and scary. And it was like every step was like stretching me in some way. Every live stream, every Instagram post, every email was like, oh my God, I hope is this right? I don't know. Oh, this is hard. And things are still challenging now, but a lot of the stuff that used to really like make me nervous or really I used to struggle with feels like second nature now at this point. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing to be able to realize in retrospect. Um, and I think so there's a certain amount of like knowing and confidence in myself that has definitely grown over the last 5 years, in my ability to support people, but then also just in my ability to support myself and kind of
Mhm.
coach myself. Like working with other people, it's amazing how it comes back around. Like your clients are a mirror sometimes. It's
Ah,
very, very amazing. Um, but I'm running at this point like a full-blown business. I have a team that I work with and they're amazing and they help run my launches and they help run the day-to-day and they make sure my customers are supported and my students love them. Sometimes I feel more than me, which is great. Uh, I'm joking, kind of. They're great. Um, yeah, so I think that was a bit of a rambly answer to your question, but pretty much everything has changed in some
yeah,
way.
I think what I really relate to what you said is when you're just starting, especially if you're starting from zero, like you're like, I got to create my offer, I need a landing page, I need a marketing campaign, I need to run my first ads, I got to write emails. It is a lot of energy and putting all the new stuff out there. It's almost like every new piece of content can feel very vulnerable and scary and like I don't know what I'm doing. And it takes a lot of courage and energy to do that. And then once you get something that works, you're now out of the creation phase and you're in the refinement phase. And that is so much less energy that I was telling James last night because, the more we launch and the longer I'm in his business repetitively, the more I go, I really get how you've designed this. And he always says to entrepreneurs, like, you've got to guard yourself against the entrepreneurial urge to just create new things every year because entrepreneurs are very creative. So you got to design an offer where you can keep the offer the same, but have your creativity be delivered in the offer. Like James is always coming up with new ideas, I've got 6 new things I want to do in every launch, but we
Yeah,
haven't changed the offer.
same.
It's
Yeah,
the same offer. We're just presenting it a different way. And this
yeah,
year, because last year I spent so much time, me, Katrina, and my sister spent so much time over like, let's have new images, let's have new emails, let's have new landing pages. That this year we are going in and just refining it. And I am having it's so much less energy to go into a recipe that already works and go, let's add cinnamon and see if that works.
yeah.
You're not reinventing how you're a cookie recipe.
I will say one thing that's a little more concrete because I know my first answer was a bit all over the place. I did hire a couple years ago. I hired a basically like an operations manager
Mhm.
to come in, and she's amazing, and we've been working together ever since. And she's kind of like my right hand, I guess. If I'm like, the visionary and very creative and coming up with these ideas, she's the one who helps me be like, okay, let's make a system around this.
Yes.
And I didn't even know the word system in relation to business when I was starting. I was all just like, this funnel, these emails, this sales page, it's all just floating around in my head. And
Yeah.
I just know magically at this time I have to turn this on, and at this time I have to turn that off and send that out and upload that. And she just kind of helped me get all of that out of my head and onto paper so that my team could help run it, and also so that we could turn it into a template and run it again and again and again. So now every time we're getting into launch season, she basically just clones the template for us. Everything that worked last time is there. We go in and make a few changes, we delegate who's doing what, and it just kind of like runs.
Mhm.
And to your point, we then get to be creative and kind of decide how we want to refine or iterate, but we're not reinventing the wheel every time, which is incredible.
Do you really valuable for you in the beginning though to be without a operations manager, like learning how to do everything yourself?
Yes. Well, yeah. And I was hearing early on that there were some people who were hiring like launch specialists or something. Or I remember hearing about that, but I've always been in the belief of like, I want to know how to do it before I hire someone to help me do it. Yeah, I think it's really important. Because I've always wanted to, I want to know how something works before I hire someone to help me with it. I never want to just, be like, okay, can you go handle that for me? And I have no idea what you're doing and no idea if you're doing it well and no ability to like course correct if things go wrong. I'd much rather, I know my audience, I know the offer better than anyone. I'd like to try it out, iterate a few times, and then get help. And even when I did hire, she came in and learned my system and brought her expertise in to refine it. But it wasn't like I was handing over the reins and she was completely taking things in a new direction.
Yeah, I think that's really important because and I always joke with James that he does have a very unique personality type because he's very he genuinely could do either role, visionary or integrator, as if that which comes from a book series that he recommends to everyone about how to run a business. It's like he is the creative and he is the content creator, but he could also be the production manager. Like he's a great producer. And because he started everything and did everything himself before he had a team. Now, a virtual assistant, I that's the exception. I think as the second you start in digital business, get yourself a virtual assistant.
And actually, long before I even joined BBD, I was listening to the podcast and I got a virtual assistant based
Yes.
on James's advice way before I even knew I was going to start.
What, do you remember what kind of work you were giving them when you first started? Like, what were you telling your VA to do?
I do remember. Well, it's because at that point, again, I wasn't running an online business. I was working as a musician, a freelancer. I was doing a lot of kind of random gigs. I was doing a lot of random teaching. So I was having her do everything from like help me fulfill merch orders
Mhm.
um, from my website, CDs, T-shirts, that kind of stuff. She was also helping me just keep up with emails. She was
Mhm.
helping me book things on my calendar, helping me book travel, um, that kind of stuff. Keep track of anything that needed to be kept track of in like a spreadsheet, like album sales or royalties or anything like that. She would kind of do all of that data organization and stuff like that for me as well. And
Yeah,
she's still
hours.
with me and she's
I
amazing.
love it.
Yeah,
Yes. So with that being the exception, hire a VA immediately. Hire a
yeah,
VA yesterday.
totally.
But
Yeah, that I
what
agree.
do you remember what price or what level of growth you were at when you brought on your full-time team
Oh,
member?
the operations
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah, your
Um,
operations manager.
I was probably somewhere in the 2 to 300,
Yeah.
maybe
See,
something
that's
like that.
perfect. It's like I think people get they get ahead of themselves with like, do I need someone running the operations? It's like, don't take on that level of responsibility with full-time with payroll until until you're like really got a solid multiple six-figure offer, and you can like you can scale it to 200K a year before you go, okay, now I'm going to build a team around me. And which I totally understand the intimidation of like, oh, I'm gonna have to start it all myself. But it really is critical for sustainability because to your point, there's nothing in your business where you don't know exactly how it runs and ticks, so that if it breaks, you get it. And if you start something from the beginning and you immediately hire an ops manager and then God forbid people have life situations happen and then they're like, I have a new job, then you're going to be like, well, shoot, I don't know what they were doing or how they did it or how to fix it. And it's a critical phase of building a business, I think, is learning how to do all the pieces. And that's one of my favorite things about BBD is you can learn all of it yourself,
Yeah.
and then you can take the same processes and pass it off to somebody else later, but it's got everything you need to,
Yeah,
build it
exactly.
from scratch.
It kind of it gives you a deeper level of confidence in what you're building when you can see all of the parts, I think.
Yeah.
For me, that level of preparation, meaning like I built my own, the checkout pages, the sales pages, I wrote the emails, I wrote all of these things, and I've got my hands deep in it. For me, then when I stand up and I'm like expressing with so much love, like how much I care about this offer, like I feel it almost in every cell of my body because I'm like, I've touched every single part of it, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying you can't get that when you delegate and give pieces of it to other people. Of course you can. But in the early stages, there's something about being like, oh my God, look what I made. Like, look at that. Look at that button. That is such a nice button. Like, I figured that out.
Yes.
It was,
Yes. Yeah. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, listen, if I can figure it out and be
yeah.
running James's launches, you can figure it out. Because let me tell you, anyone listening, 4 years ago, I was like, what's a landing page? Like that's the level of we were starting at nothing. And I was like, I don't understand what opt-in means. I don't understand what a funnel is. I don't know what do you mean by first click, last click, upsell, downsell, order bump. What is this a foreign language to me? And it now I bring James ideas where he's like, "How'd you think of that? That's great. Yeah, go do it." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll make my own opt-in system and funnel." And it's wild. You can learn it so quickly, but when I think he has a unique skill in being able to simplify complex things in a way that's very palatable and easy to learn. And obviously, it helps if you have a roadmap and you're not guessing in the dark, like when do I send these emails? It's like, well, you just go get James's calendar and follow the timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's something I definitely did was I appreciated not having to make those decisions.
Yes, it saves you so much time and energy and money, frankly, because he has spent a lot of time refining that process. And there was a lot of years of just like throwing spaghetti up at the wall and nothing sticking. And then when he finally got a formula that worked, then it's like that expression, if it's true if it's true somewhere, it'll be true everywhere. And it's like these sort of processes work in
Yeah.
any niche, from traveling trumpet player to now you've got a booming digital musical business. How cool.
Yeah. One other thing that's changed that's really special I just thought of is now I still tour. I'm still a musician very much. And I travel a lot to play my own music and play with other people. And now pretty much every time I go and play live, I meet at least one person in the audience, if not a handful of people who have taken some of my classes. And that is just the coolest thing in the world because it's the online community coming together in real life in a way that I just never, I never imagined. Like I'm talking about traveling to Europe or going all over the world and someone comes up and they're like, "Hey, I took your free training," or, "Oh, hey, I'm in learning sound and synthesis and like this blew my mind." It's really special.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you spend, what's your day like now? Like what's changed in the way that you live your life because of the digital space?
Um, well, recently I have started to uh, do something a little different with my schedule. I don't know how much detail you want, but basically, I used to kind of work all the time. Like it was crazy. All the time, all hours. It was ridiculous. Now I have a very specific work schedule that's a lot more sustainable. I work typically 4 days a week, Tuesday to Friday. Mondays are reserved for my own creative work, my own creative projects, working on my albums, prepping for my shows. That's basically, in my calendar, it's called Creative Retreat. And my team knows that anything that they need from me, they'll get on basically Tuesdays. Um, and then my, my days are either doing client fulfillment, like coaching calls in my courses, if those are running, or team meetings here and there if needed. I kind of do like themed days. So I have like Wednesdays are very focused on marketing related things. My brain works really well when I'm like focusing on one thing at a time. So on Wednesdays, I'll do social media and emails for the week ahead, and just get all of that done in one day so that I'm not thinking about it every single day and constantly trying to switch contexts.
Yes, that's so
Um,
cool. I love it. It's like
yeah,
working in batches.
batches. Yeah. And I recently just started this new thing with my team called Deep Work Days that I love so much, where I basically go into a void for a full work day. I'm not on Slack, I'm not in my email, I'm not reachable at all. And I just work on basically really important needle moving projects like developing new training material or kind of mapping out a new launch or offer or something like that. And it's amazing how much I can get done in just 8 hours of like being in the zone with no chat or nothing coming at me, no
Yes.
reactive messages. It's incredible. Um,
Wow.
so
I love,
yeah,
okay, someone's gonna listen to that and steal that. That's great. I love it. We block
yeah,
out James's calendar every Friday is his creative day. So it's like every
amazing.
Friday he's got nothing on there and that's him. He, some days he just spends it taking a walk, playing guitar and relaxing. And then other days he's like in his office the entire day because he's coming up with new ideas. But it's one day a week where it's like that's his day to where
Yeah.
he can work if he wants or he can just go be inspired by something.
Yeah. For the first couple of years of running my business, I really felt like the business, it kind of needed, at that time, it needed all my energy. But I felt like my personal artistic output kind of suffered as a result. And I noticed just last year, I started to feel a little bit of like, I don't know if it was resentment or just a little bit of like kind of friction coming in where I
That
was like,
like have to thing. That's
yeah,
like,
kind of like
ah,
I really want to just be making music today, like I want to just be a musician again. And so I thought, okay, well, I can do that. Like I'm my own boss. Why does my workday have to take 5 days? Maybe it doesn't. Let's try this out. And it took a little bit of adjusting, but it's been amazing to really just give myself that time back and not have to make it flow onto weekends or evenings when I'm tired. Just be like Mondays. It's also kind of Mondays also always used to be this really stressful day, and now they're like my favorite day of the week
love
because
that.
I get to go
Yes.
in the studio and like make music all day. I love it.
That's awesome. I love that. See, that's business by design.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sarah, what do you want to leave people with?
Um, what do I want to leave people with? I think one of the most impactful lessons that I got out of BBD, it was one of the first things that I heard was the idea of the be do have. The idea of like showing up as if you are or you have the thing that you're, wanting so badly or desiring. And I referenced that, immediately on day one when I first joined, and I've come back to it probably daily ever since then. And it's just so powerful. So this idea of, there's some place you want to be, you want to have a six-figure launch, you want to have your first launch, you want to have 50 students or whatever. Just taking a little bit of time to think about like who that version of yourself is, like how she talks and shows up and shares her offer and all of these things, does a live stream. Like, how does that version of you do the live stream? And then starting to act from that place immediately, not waiting till you have the thing, but just like starting today.
I love that. So good. I mean, I could talk to you all day. I love what you've created. Congratulations on all of your success. I know soon you'll probably be emailing me like at the end of the year or next year saying you're at a million because you're just like expanding like crazy. But I'm so inspired by what you've been able to do inside of 5 years, like a 5 year time period, going from no digital offer to or just barely starting. You're in the digital space, and now you have a business that's making over $600,000 a year in 5 years. It's incredible. And thank you so much for giving your time to inspire everyone listening.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the great conversation and just creating this space, you and James and everyone else, all of the amazing coaches, for creating the space where we can feel, safe to ask all the questions.
Yes,
It means a
yes.
lot. So, yeah.
Well, if you enjoy this segment, please come back next week. Every Wednesday, I interview a new digital CEO from our brilliant BBD community, and they let me unpack all of their success and get inside their brain and ask all the nitty-gritty questions about how they've created what they have created in their digital life and business. And this is the Wednesday Weekly Win. We'll see you next time on the Mind Your Business podcast.